I always thought blood was thicker than water, but it turns out money, ego, and a lifetime of hidden resentment can wash away 24 years of family in a single second. If you had told me a month ago that I would stand on a brightly lit stage in front of hundreds of people, holding a legal document worth $4 million, and tear it to shreds while looking my own father dead in the eyes, I would have told you that you were losing your mind. But that is exactly what I did, and watch his entire world collapse in real time was the most agonizing, freeing, and utterly intoxicating moment of my life. He looked at me from the front row, his face turning an ugly shade of purple, realizing too late that the daughter he had spent years dismissing, mocking, and finally disowning had just utterly destroyed his ultimate dream. I want to ask you right now, before I dive into how we got to that stage, would you have swallowed your pride and taken the money to keep the peace, or would you have burned the bridge down just like I did? Tell me if you think I went too far because to this day, my mother's side of the family calls me a monster, while my friends say I'm a legend. To understand why I ripped up a fortune on live television, you have to understand the dynamic of the family I grew up in. My dad, Richard, is a self-made real estate mogul, or at least, that is the narrative he loves to sell to everyone he meets. He is loud, charismatic, incredibly wealthy, and has an ego that requires its own zip code. My mother, Alina, is the quintessential trophy wife who married into money and dedicated her life to maintaining appearances, country club memberships, and making sure our family looked picture-perfect from the outside. Then there is my younger brother, Julian. Julian is 21, the golden child, the prodigal son, and in my dad's eyes, the only offspring who actually mattered. From the moment Julian was born, I became invisible. I was the older daughter, the trial run, the one who didn't inherit my dad's sharp jawline or his aggressive business instinct. Instead, I inherited my maternal grandmother's softer features, her love for literature, and a quiet determination that my dad always mistook for weakness. Throughout my childhood, Julian got the praise, the sports cars, and the elite private schooling, while I was told to stay out of the way, study something safe, and eventually find a wealthy husband so I wouldn't be a financial drain on the family estate. The real tension started when I chose my own path. I didn't want to marry a country club legacy kid, and I certainly didn't want to work at my dad's real estate firm, where I would just be Julian's subordinate. I went to college on a partial scholarship, worked 2 jobs to cover the rest, and earned a degree in urban planning and sustainable development. My dad openly mocked my degree at every single Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. He would laugh and tell his wealthy friends that his daughter was studying how to build parks for squirrels, while his son was learning how to build empires. I swallowed my pride, bit my tongue, and focused on my work. After graduating, I landed a position at a prestigious architectural and urban design firm. Over the next 3 years, I worked 80-hour weeks, survived on caffeine, and poured my heart into a massive, citywide revitalization project that aimed to transform an old, historic industrial district into a multi-million-dollar cultural hub. It was the project of a lifetime, and because of my unique background in both sustainability and local history, I was eventually named the lead project coordinator. I was so proud of myself, and stupidly I wanted my father's validation. I remember going to their massive mansion for Sunday dinner, bursting with excitement and presenting the preliminary brochures of the project to him. He didn't even look at them. He just tossed them onto the marble kitchen island and said, "That's cute, sweetie. Let me know when you're ready to get a real job. Julian just closed a $3 million commercial lease today. That's what real success looks like." The hurt was like a physical punch to the gut, but I didn't let him see me cry. I just took my brochures and left. What my dad didn't realize, because he never bothered to listen to me, was that the citywide revitalization project required the acquisition of a specific, massive plot of land currently owned by a private trust. This plot was the absolute crown jewel of the entire development. Without it, the city's grand plan could not move forward, and whoever owned that land stood to make an absolute fortune from the city's purchasing contract. The contract was valued at exactly $4 million. A month ago, the chairman of our firm called me into his office. He had a massive grin on his face. He told me that the private trust holding the deed to the crown jewel plot had finally agreed to sell, but they had a very specific condition. The founder of the trust, an eccentric old billionaire who had passed away a year prior, had mandated in his will that the land could only be sold to a developer who possessed a specific vision for historical preservation, and the final approval had to be signed off by the lead project coordinator of our firm to ensure it wouldn't just become another gentrified concrete jungle. That coordinator was me. I held the sole, legal veto power over the $4 million acquisition. If I didn't sign the approval, the city could not buy the land, and the developer holding the option to sell would lose everything. The very next day, my firm received the official paperwork detailing the development company that had successfully acquired the option to sell the land to the city. I opened the file, and my heart stopped. The company was Apex Holdings. The CEO was Richard Vance, my father. He had put every single dime of his liquid capital, along with heavy loans leveraged against his entire real estate empire, into buying the option for this land. He knew the city needed it, and he knew the city was offering $4 million for it. It was his dream project, the one that would cement his legacy and catapult him into the elite tier of billionaires. But he didn't know I was the one holding the keys to the kingdom. He had no idea I was the lead coordinator because he had never looked at my brochures. 2 days later, it was my mother's 50th birthday party. It was a lavish black-tie affair held at a luxury hotel ballroom, packed with hundreds of city officials, investors, and elite socialites. I attended, wearing a simple dress, feeling like an alien in my own family. During the main toast, my dad took the microphone. He stood on the grand stage, looking like the king of the world. He spoke about his wealth, his success, and then he pointed at Julian. He announced to the entire room that Julian was being promoted to vice president of Apex Holdings. And together, they were about to close the biggest $4 million deal in the city's history. Then, for reasons only his massive ego can understand, he decided to use me as a punchline to make himself look even grander. He looked over at my table and said into the microphone, "And then there's my daughter, Clara. She's still playing with her little city maps, earning pennies, and pretending she's making a difference. I guess genius just skips a generation. Sometimes I look at her and wonder if the hospital gave us the wrong baby, because she surely isn't my daughter. She doesn't have a single drop of my success in her blood." The room erupted into polite, uncomfortable laughter. My mother smiled and sipped her champagne. Julian smirked. I sat there, frozen, feeling the burning stare of hundreds of pairs of eyes on me. The man who raised me had just publicly humiliated me, questioning my legitimacy, mocking my life's work, and completely disowning my worth in front of the entire city, all to puff up his own chest. I felt a cold, hard knot form in my stomach. The sadness vanished, replaced by a roaring, blinding wave of pure, unadulterated fury. He wanted to pretend I wasn't his daughter. He wanted to act like my work was a joke. Fine. I was going to show him exactly what his joke of a daughter could do. I didn't storm out. I didn't cry. I stayed until the end of the party, watching him shake hands and celebrate his upcoming $4 million windfall. The very next morning, I went to my office. I called the legal team and told them I was exercising my right as the lead project coordinator to review the Apex Holdings contract in full detail. I spent 3 days straight dissecting every clause, every loophole, and every requirement. Because my dad had rushed the acquisition out of pure greed to beat out other developers, he had failed to notice a critical clause in the city's prerequisite mandate. The final approval for the $4 million payout had to be signed by me publicly at the upcoming annual City Development Gala, an event where the city honors major architectural achievements. The event was scheduled for the following week. If the lead coordinator did not sign the document on stage during the presentation, the option would automatically expire at midnight that same night, and the land would revert back to the city trust under an eminent domain clause, leaving the developer with absolutely nothing and a massive debt from the initial option purchase. My dad had no idea this clause existed because he assumed the approval was a mere formality that his high-powered lawyers would handle behind closed doors. He didn't realize the city wanted the theatricality of a public signing to show collaboration between the private sector and the municipal design team. So that is the exact situation I found myself in, and I had to make a choice that would alter the trajectory of my entire family's life forever. Before I tell you what happened next on that stage, and how I executed the ultimate revenge, I want you to pause right here and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have signed the paper, taken a cut of the money, and tried to earn your father's respect, or would you have done exactly what I was about to do? Let me know, because the climax of this mess still gives me goosebumps. The night of the annual City Development Gala arrived. The grand ballroom of the convention center was spectacular, filled with over 500 people, including the mayor, city council members, top-tier investors, and the entire local media. My dad and Julian were there, sitting in the very front row, wearing matching, custom-tailored tuxedos. They looked smug, utterly convinced that tonight was the night they became immortalized in the city's real estate history. I was backstage, wearing a sleek, professional black dress, holding the official leather-bound folder containing the $4 million contract. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from raw adrenaline. The master of ceremonies walked up to the microphone and began introducing the project. He spoke about the future of the city, the multi-million-dollar revitalization, and then he called the lead project coordinator to the stage to officially sign and validate the final land acquisition contract from Apex Holdings. As my name was called, I walked out into the bright stage lights. The applause echoed through the massive hall. I looked down into the front row and saw my dad's face change in an instant. The smug grin wiped clean off his lips. His eyes widened to the size of saucers. He looked at me, then at the massive projector screen behind me displaying my name and title, Lead Project Coordinator and Chief Architectural Liaison. He turned to Julian, frantically whispering, his face draining of all color. He had finally connected the dots. He finally realized that the daughter he had publicly mocked as a failure just days ago was the single entity standing between him and his $4 million dream. I walked up to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked directly at him. The room fell completely silent, waiting for me to give the standard, rehearsed speech and sign the document resting on the podium. I took a deep breath and spoke clearly into the microphone. Good evening, everyone. Before I sign this document, I want to share a quick story. A few days ago, a very prominent businessman in this city stood in front of a crowd and stated that genius skips a generation. He told hundreds of people that I wasn't his daughter, that my work was a joke, and that I didn't have a single drop of success in my blood. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. People began whispering, looking around the room. My dad was frozen in his seat, his eyes pleading, his hands gripping the armrests so tightly his knuckles were white. I continued. He spent my entire life making me feel invisible, treating my passion as a failure, and valuing nothing but the cold, hard cash in his wallet. He assumed that because he is powerful, the world would always bow to him. He assumed that his wealth gave him the right to crush anyone he deemed lesser than him, including his own family. I opened the leather folder, pulled out the official stamped $4 million contract, and held it high above my head so the cameras and the entire crowd could see it. This contract represents a $4 million payout to Apex Holdings. It represents the ultimate dream of a man who claims I am not his daughter. Well, tonight, I am inclined to agree with him. I am not his daughter. I am the lead project coordinator for this city, and my job is to protect this city from greedy, arrogant developers who care about nothing but their own egos. I looked directly into my father's terrified eyes, gripped the top of the legal document with both hands, and with one violent, deliberate motion, I ripped it straight down the middle. The sound of the thick parchment tearing echoed sharply through the microphone. The audience collectively shrieked. I didn't stop. I folded the papers together and tore them again, and again, until the $4 million contract was nothing but a handful of useless, shredded scraps. I tossed the pieces into the air, watching them flutter down onto the stage floor like snow. The Apex Holdings option is officially rejected, I said calmly into the microphone. This project will move forward with a developer who actually respects this city and its people. Have a wonderful evening. I turned around and walked off the stage into the wings, leaving behind a room that had erupted into absolute, chaotic pandemonium. Reporters were shouting, cameras were flashing frantically, and in the middle of it all, my father was screaming. He tried to storm the stage, but building security immediately intercepted him, tackling him to the ground right in front of the local news cameras. He was red-faced, veins popping out of his neck, shouting that I had ruined him, that I was a psycho, that he would kill me. It was a complete public meltdown, and it was all captured on live television. The aftermath was swift and utterly devastating for Apex Holdings. Because the option expired at midnight and the contract was rejected by the city's lead coordinator, the crown jewel plot of land immediately reverted back to the city trust under the eminent domain clause. My dad didn't get a single penny of the $4 million payout. Even worse, because he had leveraged his entire real estate empire and taken out predatory short-term loans to secure the initial option, he had no way to pay back his creditors. Within 2 weeks, Apex Holdings filed for bankruptcy. Their assets were liquidated, their upcoming projects were seized, and my dad went from being a multimillionaire mogul to a disgraced, broke businessman facing multiple lawsuits from angry investors. Julian's fancy promotion to vice president lasted exactly 5 days before the company ceased to exist. He had to sell his sports car and actually get a regular, entry-level job just to pay his rent. My mother has sent me dozens of furious, essay-long text messages, calling me an ungrateful, vindictive snake who ruined her life and destroyed the family legacy. She claims they are losing the mansion and that I have embarrassed them beyond repair. My dad tried to call me once from a burner phone, screaming and cursing, promising that he would make sure I never worked in this state again. I didn't say a word. I just listened to him rage for 10 seconds, smiled, and hung up. His threats are empty anyway. My firm completely backed my play. While the theatricality of the stage tearing was a shock, my legal team had already prepared the backup developer paperwork behind the scenes, ensuring the city's project moved forward without a single delay. The city council actually praised me for vetting out an unstable developer whose financial over-leverage would have likely crashed the project halfway through construction anyway. I was promoted to Senior Director of Urban Development last week, with a massive raise and total creative control over the new cultural hub. Looking back on everything, I don't feel a single ounce of regret. My father wanted to disown me and treat my life's work as a joke, so I used my life's work to take away the only thing he truly ever loved, his money and his status. He taught me my entire life that actions have consequences and that the strong survive while the weak get crushed. I guess he just never expected that his quiet, invisible daughter would turn out to be the strongest one in the room. It's a harsh moral, but the lesson here is simple. Never underestimate the people you push into the shadows, because one day, they might just become the ones holding the match that burns your entire kingdom down. If you think I did the right thing by standing up to a bully and protecting my dignity, please hit that like button right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more wild, real-life revenge stories just like this one, and definitely drop your final thoughts on this whole family mess in the comments section below. I'll be down there reading them. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you all in the next story.